Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Jennifer V. Brown, your stroke specialist. And today we're going to talk about ankle foot orthoses in the context of shoes. And I just want to share some pearls of wisdom. A lot of this came from my research with stroke survivors and what they thought about their ankle foot orthoses. And what was really important to them was why it didn't fit in the shoes that they wanted to wear. So I took pictures of the ankle foot orthoses, a portrait of the person wearing the ankle foot orthoses, and then a video of them doing something in the ankle foot orthoses. And I asked all of the stroke survivors a series of questions. And yes, the AFO was a problem in the way that it looked, the fit and the function of it, the comfort of it. But the most important thing was that the AFO itself took away the power of choice in that they could not wear the shoe that they wanted to wear. If you notice in the picture here, the lady is wearing two different types of shoes because the AFO would fit in one, but it wouldn't fit in the other. All right. And here's a gentleman who's wearing his ankle foot orthoses with sandals. Here's a lady having to wear her ankle foot orthosis in a shoe to accommodate the AFO, but the AFO has her in plantar flexion. And no one thought to add a wedge so that the shoe could meet the floor so that she could properly stand. And the person sitting with the ankle behind the knee, I think this is a great example of an ankle foot orthosis that's least restrictive, but allows her ankle to come behind her knee so that she can efficiently stand. But she has on a black sneaker. Is that the only thing that she wears all the time? What if she wanted to wear something else to match perhaps a dress, a skirt? So these are some of the things that you have to think about in terms of an ankle foot orthosis. I really think the AFO should fit the person's foot. And once it fits the person's foot like a glove, then it should be able to get into any shoe that the person owns with some considerations. All right, so what are those considerations? It depends on the style of the shoe. So, what are some components of the shoes that really matter when getting an ankle foot orthosis? The first thing is, are you going to get a flat or a wedged outer sole? So, if you look at a shoe, it has the same thickness from the heel to the toe, whereas in some sneakers, it's wedged at the heel and then it gets thin at the toe and it often curves up. And then the insole, which is the green portion here, you have to consider, is that removable from a shoe? Because if it is, it can take up the space equivalent to the thickness of an AFO. And sometimes my AFO that I make for my clients is thinner in some areas and thicker in the other. Thicker because they need more stability, thinner because they need more mobility. And also that insole often has an arch in it depending on the type of shoe. So if I'm going to remove that, I got to make sure there's an arch support built into the ankle foot orthoses. And then you have to look at the toe box. So that's the U-shaped red portion that you see. Is it rounded or pointed? So in a rounded shoe, the AFO seems to fit better. But if you have a narrow foot and most of your shoes are pointed, you have to make sure that the AFO is contoured to your foot so that it'll fit in the pointed shoe. And then you got to think what is the toe cap or the area around the toes made out of? If it's mesh like a sneaker, you won't have so many problems with the ankle foot orthosis if it's made a little wide at the metatarsal joint, metatarsophalangeal joint, where you often get valgus here at the big toe. And you follow that arch. So that's the widest part of the foot when it flattens out. But what if it's leather? If you put the AFO in, it makes the shoe wider. The toe depth comes down and it often bothers the top of the toe. So you have to think about these things and some more. Now you look at the vamp. All right, it's the middle part of the shoe, which is often holds the widest part of the shoe that I was talking about. All right, and it's behind the toe cap. It is connected to the quarter where you usually have your laces and the tongue. All right. So the tongue is called where it attaches to the vamp is called the throat. And that little stitch can either be pointed or square. I find that women with narrow feet, they can do a pointed tongue, but people with a wide foot, they need a square. And I must admit, if they have sneakers, I would take and rip a couple threads out so that the AFO can fit around that square area and be more comfortable. The quarter is the area that connects the vamp to the heel counter or cap. And the heel counter is the area that wraps behind the heel. All right. Um, in that area, you often see the little loop on the back that you can slip your finger and help pull up. And I find that to be very helpful for people who have one hand to put their shoe on. And so I wanted you all to be familiar with these parts of the shoe because we can make changes in them so that the shoe can fit better. For some people who didn't care, who had a hard time putting in their heel, I would put a slit in the back at the top of the heel counter. Um, for the people who had really narrow foot that were overpronated, how you do the shoelaces in a sneaker with those extra holes in the quarter, I could help lift the medial part of the foot, but be lax on the lateral side just by how I oriented the shoestrings in the shoe. So it's very helpful if you know about what you can manipulate in the shoe to accommodate the brace, which should be accommodating to the foot. Often we make the brace and then we tell the person to get a bigger shoe at that's wider and longer than necessary compared to the other foot just to accommodate the brace. If you want to know more about shoe components, check out chapter 1, pages 19 through 21 in my book, Brace Yourself, Everything You Need to Know About AFOs After Stroke. It was written in the language and for the perspective of stroke survivors. And it can be ordered from jvbneuropt.com/book. It's available on Amazon also. So, what are some clinical pearls of wisdom that I want you to know? First of all, I think the AFO should fit the foot first and accommodate the shoe second. So, if you notice in this picture, this gentleman is wearing a dress shoe, but his AFO is so wide at the ankle, I can fit my whole finger in between his foot and the outside of the AFO. So imagine how much pronation is going to occur there. And he may start to rub that part of the foot onto the AFO. You need to consider your daily activities and which shoe you wear the most. Take that shoe with you to your appointment with the occupational therapist to practice dressing and take a video of how you put your shoe on and off. Make sure that same shoe goes with you to the appointment with the physical therapist and the orthotist. I believe in a team approach here. And so that see if the sole can come out, because if the sole, the inner sole can come out, it shows your weight bearing patterns. It shows how the bottom of the ankle foot orthosis should look to accommodate your foot. right? Consider again how you put on your shoes, the ability to use both hands or one hand, and whether you're going to have caregiver assistance. Because time is of the essence. You don't want to spend minutes struggling to put on a shoe unnecessarily. Also, your physical therapist should have you do your exercises safely with the shoes and AFO on, and then keep the AFO on, but loosen or take off the strap, and then do the exercises without the AFO in the shoe. Regularly inspect your shoes for wear and tear because it can impact your walking also, especially that outer sole. If it's worn away, it will impact how you land on your heel and roll over into pronation and then push off on your toes. And hopefully your AFO has the flexibility to allow you to do that. And then be prepared to buy two pairs of shoes, especially if you have a narrow foot, because you have to buy something wider to accommodate the brace as well as longer. And I just don't ascribe to that, but it happens. And then you'll have the longer shoe on the shorter foot that's narrower. And I've seen a lot of people trip because they've had a longer shoe. And so it doesn't hurt to write the shoe store owner and say, can I have a discount? Because I have to buy two pair of shoes to accommodate this brace. Don't forget to request a pair from the manufacturer that they may just have that hasn't been sold, and you opt to wear that type shoe. But there are a lot of things that you can do to cut the cost for having to get a second pair of shoes. I've tried them and they do work. Remember, I am your trusted source for all things ankle foot orthoses and neurorehabilitation. And don't forget about the references. More references for you to use to improve your clinical knowledge of this area and how to modify the shoe or know about the shoe so that you can have better function with your ankle foot orthosis. And your last reference. Why is this important? Because evidence-based practice makes for the best clinical practice. Thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this information. See you next time. Bye.